Eric Wardo.
Christy Wood. Carol Locke.
Lauren Ferruccio.
Ann Pierce.
Tim Broderick.
John MacArthur.
Heidi Duford. Okay, review the agenda.
I make a motion we accept the agenda as read.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Great, agenda stands. We need to approve the minutes for April 15th and May 13th.
I make a motion we approve the minutes of April 15th and May 13th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We have public input on agenda items only. Any public input? Seeing none, we will move along. Informational items, we have enrollments, ACS and Prospect Mountain for May and June. Looks like ACS has gone down by about 9. And 9 and 10, so May, June.
Wow.
Yep. Fluctuations.
Well, last year's 8th grade was pretty large. That makes a difference.
So financials, we have the revenue and expenditure report. Heidi, is there anything that we should pay closer attention to, or does anybody on the board have any questions about the expense report and the revenue report?
I don't have anything in particular that we haven't discussed.
Okay.
I don't have any questions.
Okay, moving along. We have copies of the NHSBA Call for Resolutions, which is this magazine, the DA, District Administration. Our first annual list of the top 100 influences in education.
None of us made it.
I was close. No, I'm just kidding.
Next
No,
year.
it's good magazine if anybody is interested. We have copies of that. And we have a technology report. Matt is here if there are any questions. That's call for resolutions, technology report. So they've worked on AI, new filter and alert system, taking bids to do a rewiring project, that's big, and new server for the camera system, and setting up a system to do daily backups. Any questions for Matt? Okay, moving on. Building and grounds, we have Sean here as well, so if there are any questions for Sean. Looks like wrapping up is the big focus right now. June is always busy. Field day, when you walk, promotion night. Promotion night's set to be outside, and that's on the 17th, right? And so thank you very much for all your work. Any questions for Sean for building and grounds?
Well, under your report, Sean, it says recommended encumbrances. Should we be talking about that while Sean's sitting here, or?
Yeah, you have it as an action item
Right.
to vote on encumbrances, but if you want Sean to be able to go home and you want to go
Yeah, I
through them
think it'd
now,
be
that
nice.
would
Yes,
give you an
please.
opportunity to ask him any questions you might have. The probably easiest sheet to look at would be one we just put on the table tonight. Has a staple, and you can open it up. It's just easier to read.
Yep.
Yeah. And stapled to it is a mock-up of some signs with video streams underneath it, which we'll get to quickly. We reviewed all of this at the Building and Grounds Committee non-meeting. Was that last week? Whenever that was, recently. So right now, Heidi estimates $130,000 in unencumbered surplus. That's still a couple of weeks out, and the truth is that it even takes several weeks after the turn of our fiscal year for invoices to show up and things to get paid and to find out really where we're going to end up. But this is, her best guess right now, sitting here tonight, is that when everything settles down after the fiscal year, we think we'll have about $130,000. We believe you're going to want to encumber more than that, and that's why there's a little more up here at the top half of the page. And we also have a couple of new members, and a significant amount of turnover over the last few years, so it's probably a good time to walk through some of these things. You have a number of expendable trust and capital reserve funds. Heidi keeps track of those. You can always get a list if you want a list. We didn't bring that tonight because there's enough here, but you can see where every dollar is. We submit those to the town budget committee every year when we go see them. We go talk about it with the capital improvement plan committee in Alton every year. You have a special education expendable trust with a balance of $403,000 in it right now. And the reason we highlighted that one first is if you went back, I love that you didn't have any questions on the expenditure report. I sure did, but mine have already been answered. There are some significant overages in special education, especially if you look at certain lines. If you look at the special education tuition lines, those are students who have had to be placed in specialized schools out of district. So instead of going to school at Alton Central School, they have to go to school at a school like the Monarch School in Rochester, or St. Charles School, or Mount Prospect Academy. There are probably 8 or 10 of them that we have relationships with, depending on a student's particular needs. Not very long ago, we would budget about $50,000 in tuition for one of those schools. Starting a couple of years ago, we started budgeting about $70,000 in tuition, and now we are budgeting about $100,000 in tuition. So each child who cannot be educated in this building is still entitled to a free and appropriate public education, and that means that we pick up the tab for this tuition. There were 2 placements this year during the school year that we didn't anticipate in this budget because we couldn't anticipate. The total amount of tuition for those 2 students was $129,000. So if you go back to the expenditure report and you find the tuition lines, you'll find that. You'll find $129,000 there. One of the things you can do, and we are recommending this to you, you don't do it tonight, but this is something you need to think about before you start encumbering funds for projects, is you have the authority to hold a public hearing, which we could schedule for you in August, and you could withdraw $129,000 from that fund to offset those unanticipated expenses during fiscal '24. That money would come back in on those lines in the budget, but the net effect in the fiscal '24 budget would be to increase the amount of unencumbered surplus from about $130,000 to about $259,000. So I have a joke that I think is funny about public finance, about how it's sort of moving things here and there to make it work out. But as long as you follow the law, that is what it is, and you can do it. So I think given that is an area where we spent significantly more money than we expected to when we prepared the budget, it would make sense for you to dip into that $403,000 fund to bring that money out. Again, you won't do it until August if you're willing to do it, but the reason you have to think about it now is if you start voting encumbrances in about 15 minutes that exceed $130,000, we're going to come to you saying we need to find this money somewhere, and this is a place where that money can come from. That all makes sense? Good. So you also have some money in a capital reserve fund for boilers. Right now that's 104. Article 9, just this past March, just a few months ago, we'll raise and appropriate another $120,000 to push into that fund. So next year we'll sit here and there will be $224,000 in the boiler capital reserve. In 4 or 5 years, we'll be ready to do the next boiler project. That becomes important later when Sean talks to you about the chimney repairs that we are not recommending you actually do right now. There's a technology trust fund, and then there's the building and grounds fund. The building and grounds fund right now has a balance of about $593,000 in it. There's another $40,000 coming in. That was Article 5 just this past March. So that's money that gets raised and appropriated in addition to our operating budget based on those warrant articles passing. That $40,000 will go into the building and grounds fund. That'll increase the balance from 593 to, Tim doesn't do math in his head, 633. And later, when Matt is ready, we'll bring you the scope of work and procurement for the camera, surveillance camera improvements in this building, which will be up to that amount, and that's what that money's for. There's also, and this is important for, I don't know if any of you were here, none of you were here at the beginning of it at least, there was a 3-year request. So 3 years in a row, the board ran warrant articles asking to raise and appropriate money to renovate the cafeteria and the kitchen. Some of the work's been done. So all of the money was raised over a 3-year period. Some of the work's been done, but it needs to be finished. Appliances need to be replaced, and then there are some other back in the kitchen renovations to do. $230,000 of the 593 in that fund is earmarked for that. But this year we need to work with the architect and figure out the scope of work. You know, this was conceived, I think, before or during COVID, when things cost a lot less than they do now. I'm dealing with another school construction project that in the last 2 years has escalated by 21%.
Wow.
And that's just the way it is now. So if it's important to you to do everything the board was thinking about back in 2020 or whenever it was, we're gonna need more money. But maybe we can look at the scope and make it make sense for the amount of money we have, and we'll bring you some options. So that's all just kind of to give you an orientation and set the table for what has to happen tonight. And that is, you have some projects that we've talked about, or that we will talk about now. And Sean can answer questions even though I'm doing the overview. We've got a wiring project that Matt's here to talk about if you need it. It's actually money that we already have budgeted, but we're not allowed to expend from the fiscal '24 budget after June 30th unless you vote to encumber. And we're not gonna be able to do this work until the summer. So even though the money's in the budget for this purpose, we're just adding it to the list so you can vote to encumber up to $4,000 so he can finish the wiring project at the SAU building. Which even though we use it for all 3 districts, it's owned by Alton. We have an $18,000 grant from the Department of Homeland Security to put the bank teller window and some bullet-resistant glass or bulletproof film on the glass in the entry vestibule so that when parents come in to pick up homework and drop off lunches and things like that, they won't have to be given access to the building. We actually want to spend $26,000 on that. So procurement's been done. That'll require a vote to encumber up to $8,000. Everybody wants gutters over the the playground outside preschool or out on the edge of the roof, you know what I mean? That's not that expensive, so that's part of this too. And then the last thing, and Heidi can speak to the detail if you have questions, is we recommend you sweep $131,479, that's a lot of money, from the general fund into food service, and it's simply because of an operating loss, a huge operating loss. So when we get to setting the next lunch price, you have to think about this. That all adds up to $146,259. Now, way back up at the top, our projected surplus is $130. So now you can see why I already addressed the way you could bring $129,000 more in August. Does that make sense? So that's the first set of encumbrances we recommend. If you,
Do we want to talk about that or go on?
questions, whatever you want to do.
So it appears, Sean, that you're recommending all of these except for the chimneys, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
And that's on the back.
and that's on the back.
Yeah.
The rest of them, I'm assuming you recommend. Okay.
So the next 3 add up to $74,230. You already, I think, know most of the detail around these. That's a real price for the sign, right? We've done procurement now. And that's with the video board underneath, and it's the kind of fancier of the 2, right?
So the question is, do we withdraw the $35,000 from the unencumbered surplus, or do we have a public hearing and ask to withdraw it from building and ground?
Right, so you don't have to do any of that tonight. Tonight, if you want to vote to encumber all of these projects, both the first 146 plus the next 74,230, that adds up to 224,89. The reason I give you all this other information is we're gonna come to you in August and say, look, we need X number of dollars. You voted to do this work, now we need the money, and you're gonna have choices. You could pull some out of the special ed trust fund. You could pull some out of the buildings and grounds fund. But if you want to encumber funds for these projects, these total of 7 projects, we're going to need a little more money. That's okay for us, it's not difficult for us to figure out, and we'll know by August. But if we show up in August and we're talking to you about pulling money out of a fund, and you go, what are you talking about? That's a problem. We can't do that to you.
But essentially, a lot of this, some of this money has already been voted on. We just have to encumber it because we have to do the work after July 1st.
Right.
Right.
All right.
So this all makes sense to me, and not doing the chimney repair makes sense. I can see, the reasoning there. And I think the first step is just to encumber it, and then we can discuss more in August exactly where it's going to come from and how that's going to work.
I agree.
Right. If you want us to do the 7 projects for up to $224.89,
Somebody wanted to make a motion.
we need a vote by June 30th.
So you need to encumber $220,489. So I make a motion that we encumber $220,489 for future projects.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Sean was ready to sell.
Sean, thank you very much.
I trust you, Sean. I trust you.
So, have a nice evening. Thank you.
You can go.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Is there a reason Matt has to stay?
Okay, so that was general assurances over in action items. Jumping back to informational, principals report.
My report is as noted, but I did want to just extend another congratulations to Stockton McKnight and Rebecca Thomas, who are our scholar leaders this year. We celebrated with their families and their teachers at Johnson's the other week. It was a really nice night, and it should be in the Baysider. It's on the website. It's everywhere. But we're looking forward to on promotion night celebrating one more time and officially awarding them their plaques. 2 fine students. The Winnie Walk was successful. Special thank you to Sarah Newton, who took it over this year for NJHS. It was a very successful walk. I don't think we could have had better weather to do it today. Just an update from when I wrote this. For Greg and Sarah and the band and chorus, they brought home silver medals from Great East this year. And kudos to them again. One of the things that got thrown at them last minute is Canopy was closing the park at 4 p.m., which just wasn't enough time. So they reached out for suggestions. One of them was go to Tuscan Village. There's a lot of things right in Salem if you haven't been to Tuscan. And the kids had a blast. There was live music. There's like outdoor area. There's also a Chick-fil-A and a Shake Shack, which is huge for these kids. So they really did have a fun time and just a great opportunity for them. And again, promotion. I did leave off the behavioral things, and that's because for this particular report, just because they're on Matt J's, the exact ones that I would have put on here, so I didn't want to waste your time with that. And then finally, what's not on here, where this is my last official school board meeting, I just wanted to thank you all, as well as the community, my students, and my staff for an amazing 7 years. I know you're in good hands for the future with Janice. I'm making sure that everything is in order, so when I do pass, and she's got my number, that if she needs anything or anybody needs anything, that I'm open and available to do it, because I know I want nothing more than for this place to keep flying and to succeed. So thank you, everybody.
That's great, John.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Well, we thank you also. That's
Thank you.
great.
Okay. Yeah, I don't, Matt, no. We need
I, it was about the Autodesk thing, in case you had a question.
Yeah, it's coming.
Pretty
Oh.
much the same thing
All
as
right.
what we talked about at the high school.
with the AutoCAD?
Yeah, because one of the products is Tinkercad, and Derek Cappuccino had previously taught that before the law went into effect, and that they would be able to accept Autodesk here as well, where he said you could start using it and translate those skills to high school.
Okay, so we could move on that at this point. I'm sure I have a paper somewhere.
I gave a little write-up to Matt, he was doing the thing before.
Not that.
So the Autodesk part is looking at Matt's.
It's in Matt's report?
No, I don't see it. So the vote is to allow us to seek parent permission to let their students use this software because the manufacturer has not signed a data privacy agreement,
It's
which
the same as the
New
high
Hampshire
school.
law requires.
Right.
That's the question.
All right.
So we need a motion to approve the use of Autodesk
Yeah.
and to gain parent permission.
So moved.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, no one's opposed. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay, so that is done. So now going back to Matt's,
Yeah.
so,
Matt's in Iowa wrapping up his year in his graduate program.
Nice.
He and I have spent a lot of time looking at these graphs. I think the blue and gray one and the green and red ones are probably, pictures are a little easier, I think, to understand than paragraphs and paragraphs. And it concerns us, math is worse than reading. We see the same thing at the high school level, right? You've just seen that recently. This decline is not since the pandemic, so we are not accepting the popular idea right now that, since the pandemic, these things have been happening. That's why these graphs go back to 2017. It's not as extreme here at ACS, this decline, as we see in some other places, but it still exists, and it's definitely worse in math. The red and green, we should probably flip it because it looks like it's going uphill,
Yeah.
and that's implies better, but it's not.
No, it's
Because
not.
red is below proficient and green
kinda
is above
scary.
proficient. It's just not what we're looking for. And I think in a time when more educators are considering getting out of the field for a variety of reasons, including pay, but also including, you've seen, I don't know if we have Swiss data here. Yep, there we go on the back. The increase in the need for behavioral supports and disciplinary incidents in schools. It's not just here. It's a difficult time to go to teachers and say, look, we need to expect more, we need to demand more in terms of curriculum and instruction and student achievement, but that is what we have to do. This is our job. So it is a tricky time, and I just want to acknowledge what you're looking at is just what it looks like. It's not good news, and it's over a long period of time. So we want to try to do something about it. We are very aware, I am very aware that not every idea we have meets with tons of public approval and staff approval, but we have to try to address these things.
yeah, I think we're looking forward to a new year at this point, and
How are class sizes, Jim? Or Janice or John? How are class sizes?
One of the things in my report is to try to add we talked about this 2 months ago, to try to add a fourth grade class if we can fit it into the budget
Yeah.
in order to keep,
I
we
mean, it
want
does
class
make a
sizes to
difference.
be smaller for younger kids. That's what
Right.
we want. They get a little bigger as you get up into
Sure,
middle school.
but it does make a difference in
But yes.
discipline to have smaller class sizes.
So if we can go to 3 fourth grades next year, that's at the top. I think it might be the first thing, maybe it's the second on my list in my report tonight.
So what are you gonna be looking at over, sorry, nobody can hear me on the video. So what are you gonna be looking at over the summer? I mean, once we get the assessment scores back, like, are you gonna be developing a plan to start tackling, like,
Yeah, so we're-
especially the math, or?
We're very much in Matt's domain now, as opposed to mine, but it's one of the reasons we created that position also a few years ago at the joint board. Last year, he and a consultant worked with folks in the schools on I can statements. What is it we expect students to be able to do
Yep.
at each grade level? That's sort of the beginning of curriculum mapping. This year, staff participated in professional development around UDL, Universal Design for Learning, with the idea that now they are prepared to go into next year now filling out, it's been 20 years, so I call it scope and sequence. I'm sure they have a softer name now. Right, Carol? But to actually document and map out the curriculum. This is what we expect to be happening, not only grade by grade, but month by month and week by week. And again, when I was a teacher, we didn't like to hear it, and I know people don't want to hear it now, but that's what it comes down to, is having really clear expectations about in third grade during September, these are the things we do. It, again, not always popular, but schools that don't have that struggle.
We did try that in the school. They did try curriculum mapping at one point. There are consultants who will come in and work with teachers on curriculum mapping, and it really makes a difference, because if third grade's teaching something and fourth grade's teaching the same thing, and then fifth grade's teaching it again, it's redundant.
Right, you can't have dinosaurs 3 years in a row.
Right.
Yeah.
So we do have a consultant who's been doing this work with Matt. We use a lot of grant funds for this stuff. Ally, and someone's gonna tell me her last name, or not, Brown?
I was gonna say Brown.
Might be Brown.
I feel like
So
it's
she's
Brown,
been,
but
so
I'm
she's
thinking
now
of
been
Stephanie
engaged
now.
with our staff here with Matt for 2 years. We're doing the same, they do it together, so we bring the third and fourth grade groups from Alton and Barnstead together, and so we're trying to create common curriculum
The other
maps.
thing that helps too is remediation, not by classroom. So you don't say Mrs. So-and-so's class only. You merge kids who have that skill, that need that skill. So you say, okay, so Christy's in so-and-so's class, Lauren's in a different class, but they may come together during win time to be remediated in that skill. And sometimes that's all it takes, is like 4 weeks of remediation in a particular skill set. So you look at the test scores and you say, which children need this remediation? That worked in Gilmington for us. We had tutors come in, we had every power available, we had dedicated times to K-1-2 remediation, 9 to 10 in the morning. Then from 10 to 11, we did third and fourth grade, and we brought every available person in, and we had groups of 3 or 4 kids, remediation. I'll be happy to sit down with you about it, but it did make a huge difference in our kids' performance.
So we're planning on something aggressive then. I mean, if it's
We have to.
gonna make waves with the teachers a little bit, I hope they understand, like, we need to right the ship here. We're
Well,
not
some
on a
of this
very
is
good
also-
course. And that's, you know, my other question
Everywhere.
really quick was like, do we have a mentorship with a district that is succeeding? Like, what are they doing differently other than having boatloads of money because they're a bigger district or something? But like, what are they doing that we're not, that could potentially work here or that can help us?
That's an interesting question that I don't know the answer to, but I think the answer is we don't, with another district specifically. You did highlight something important. The most reliable correlation factor with student achievement is household income. That's true across the United States. So communities that are wealthier have students who achieve more in school. You can fill in the gaps in between any way you want, and I don't know what's right and what's wrong and what's true and what's not, but that correlation has been true for many, many, many years, for decades. But we are not an underfunded school here at Alton Central School. That's not our problem.
Right.
We have the money.
And we have good teachers, so we have to figure out how we're gonna.
But do
use
they
all of
have, like, would another district have more money to bring in
I think
more
tutors,
tutors
yeah.
or, I don't know. I'm just curious, like,
Where's the breakdown?
those that are succeeding, what are they doing differently?
The tutors made a difference. They were certified teachers that we paid by the hour. They were retired teachers who wanted to work 20 hours a week. And that really made a difference in ours. So, it's something to think about, pay benefits.
I do think trying to develop some type of mentorship or some type of relationship with a district that is succeeding, to
like
use
that
as,
idea.
Might be
as
interesting to
professional
see, yeah.
development, I think is a great idea.
Especially post-COVID,
Yeah.
where things got disrupted quite a bit, and
Yeah.
are they rebounding? How? But,
Yeah,
and I don't wanna disrupt our culture either. I mean, we're lucky. ECS has, we've got a lot of great things going for it, and I don't wanna see that go by the wayside if we're, like, it would be nice to have everything.
Yes. Well, I mean, and
I don't want anything else to go to a fault.
no, but I think,
know,
looking
but-
at the way these scores have gone, it was 56% and it's continually gotten smaller, so that, believe me, I'm not a big fan of standardized testing, but, the numbers also,
It does have some indications.
it does have some indicators, yes.
We're a $15 million a year business. I understand not everybody likes to view public schools in terms of businesses, but we are a $15 million a year business, basically. And every business has some core functions at which it has to be effective. Reading, writing, and math are those core functions. All of the other things we do are important. Community is important. Social and emotional development is critically important. Kids need to develop in a whole, organic way. But our core business is reading, writing, and math achievement.
True. Yeah, and we're the headwaters for the high school.
Right.
We're, you know, if these numbers are reflecting that.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else on Matt's report? Or the report? Tim?
3 things on mine. School calendar we've already talked about. You're aware from your JMA meeting that we have an issue in September. Shouldn't affect Alton Central School, but I'll just be coming to all 3 boards on what that's going to look like at your August meetings. We talked 2 months ago about the feedback staff at grade level teams here in Alton had given to Matt Jazokis and me. And here we are with the 4. You've seen these before, I mentioned these to you, but these are still the things that we're trying to fit into the budget. Try to have an academic intervention room that's distinct from the bot room. There's that 4th grade classroom. It comes down to being able to afford to put a teacher there. The middle school team and the UA, Unified Arts teams, both asked that we re-examine the middle school elective schedule and WIN schedule because there is a lot of time going to not core academic subjects. Hey, there's a connection to what we were just talking about. And then if we can make the schedule work for next fall, see if we can take what's currently 1.5 phys ed teachers and 1.5 school counselors, because one person is split between both, and have 2 school counselors and 1 phys ed teacher, which probably works, but we just need to sit down with Janice and do the scheduling and talk to the teachers and make sure it works. So that's not a big budgeting thing, that's just a logistics item. The other 3 have budget impacts. So that's work that we'll do before the teachers leave. We want to come back and talk to some of them, at least the team leaders, probably a bigger group from the middle school, along with Janice. And then the last thing you're going to love, it's about cell phones. I've been talking about cell phones for a couple of years now to some of you. And here at Alton Central School, you have a policy on cell phones that I've attached, but it doesn't really say anything about student use of cell phones. It was written in 2006, and it says, during an emergency, you should use your cell phone to call the police. I'm not asking for a change to that policy. I just wanted you to know that I had looked to see if we had anything. What we do have in the student parent handbook, though, is the paragraph I've reproduced here titled Prohibited Items. So use of electronics and cell phones is prohibited unless designated for an educational purpose under the supervision of a teacher or administrator. What I wanted to float with you this evening is that this is a K through 8 or a pre-K through 8 school. And I want to propose, if you don't object, that in the next student parent handbook, we change that. And we do not allow teachers to designate an educational purpose for a student's personal electronic device, including their cell phone. In fact, we say to the, right, we have Chromebooks. We say to our students and their parents that cell phones are not to be used during school hours. And then I've outlined a 4-step set of consequences. I'm trying to take a little bit of heat off of administration, especially with a new interim principal coming in. Put the heat here instead. And if you don't want it, you can put it on me. That's okay too. But I have seen enough problems. This I will say since the pandemic, because I've been in education. I was in education before, and I've been in education after. And cell phones were always a topic of discussion in schools prior to the pandemic. But it is different now. I believe it's different now, and there's much more disciplinary interplay with student cell phone use, and it's getting more disturbing, if I can be vague. I'd rather be. So first offense, we take the phone to the office, and the student can get it back at the end of the day. Second offense, a parent or guardian has to come in to get it at the end of the day. Next offense, a parent or guardian can come in and meet with the principal and get it back the next day. And after that, the principal has some discretion to require that a student's phone be left in the office every day.
I
You
would
don't have
like
to agree.
see that there be a place for a student if they need to call home to have a private space to do
Yeah, I
that.
was just
Because
gonna say that. Thank you.
I see so many students who come into the office and Penny will give them their phone and, you know, there's 5 people in there and they're trying to talk privately and that's not okay. So if they can have a private space, that would be great.
So what are they
Yeah.
calling privately for during the school day? I'm very confused by that.
I think there's
I
all
think
kinds of
There's
things.
all kinds of reasons.
Really?
Yeah,
Yep.
I
Do they
think,
have to call their parents during the school day?
Yep.
yeah,
Huh.
I think that's reasonable. I really do.
Whether
I
it's
agree.
Yeah, it could be after school stuff, sports, scheduling, something got canceled, they gotta get picked up.
What if they're calling to complain about a teacher though? See, I've had that happen.
Well,
Well,
I mean,
then-
But
It's private
what
space.
if they are?
Yeah.
What if they
shouldn't be
are, you
allowed
know what
to
I
do
mean?
it.
But
They need to go home and process with their parents, but
But
not call, I don't know. I don't
sometimes they need to
disagree.
process it right then and there to
With
get
the
back
guidance
on track.
counselor or the principal or.
But some kids listen to their parents
Yeah.
and more than they would
Or
listen
if
to a
they're
counselor,
dealing with an issue,
like a health issue or.
health, or if there's maybe even like a bullying issue that they don't feel comfortable bringing up except to their parent, I think they should be afforded that allowance, definitely, to have the ability to access a telephone to be able to call their parents. If we're gonna take their phones away, the kids that need to be able to access their parents should be able to access their parents.
And
It's-
there can be some, you know, guidance with that. If you have a kid who's coming down every day to call his mom, that's different. But I mean, you know, we have to give them something.
So we have 6 adults in this school, who each have a space, that they could allow a student to use. We have a school social worker, we have a nurse, we have 2 school counselors, we have an assistant principal and a principal. So we could include that a student may ask permission from a teacher to go see one of these people, and they could give them privacy and the opportunity to use their phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it could be at the discretion of that person, so that you
Yeah, I
don't get
think
into
would
that
be an important piece, the
situation
person,
where
yeah.
it's every
Yeah.
day or, you know.
This really, for me at least, when cell phones first became pervasive, I was in the camp of educators who thought we just need to teach students how to use these responsibly. I have come to believe since the pandemic that there is an involuntary aspect to adolescents' use of social media, especially on their smartphones, and I'm not sure it's teachable. I'm not even sure adults can be taught to resist some of the hooks that these apps put into people.
Yeah.
I think it's
'Cause I've
just
seen it.
different conversation for elementary, middle school, and high school.
Yeah, there's definitely.
Yeah, you won't see this at the high school.
Right.
You won't.
So we're at the, out of middle school, where,
This is
and
middle school.
I guess I'd also like to, hear from our new interim principal, what your feedback is and how you feel. Not to put you on the spot, but I do, but you will
Yeah, why
be, you know,
So as assistant principal, any of those disturbing things that happen with cell phones are reported to me first. And he is not, playing it down by saying it is disturbing. And that is mostly coming from our middle schoolers who are much more mature than middle schoolers of 10 or 20 years ago. So by giving them a private space to make a phone call, all for it. I have no issue with that. But allowing them to have their phones out, texting, or using social media, it becomes a huge issue that
Right.
almost always ends up in my office. Because other people see it, then it's shared, then we have to get other people involved. It's not.
right, so I just wanted to make sure that you support this and you are
Yeah, I-
comfortable with it.
No issue with a child that needs to call home, absolutely fine.
Okay, yeah? What are you looking for?
I mean, don't get mad when we do it. It's one of those things, right? You don't have a policy, the handbook you approve every year, so that you'll see the language in the handbook, when it's revised this August. You'll have a shot at it then. You can check and make sure that you're happy with what it says.
I much prefer this than having to have the kids turn them in to a teacher and then having the teacher have to be responsible for it. I mean, just tell them that, you know, prohibit it, and
They have lockers, don't they? Do they have lockers?
they're not allowed to lock them,
Oh,
so
they're not? Oh, then I
don't
wouldn't put
wanna,
a cell phone in there.
you
That
wouldn't wanna
costs too
put
much.
valuables in it,
No, they just
so
don't lock them.
So
They
where
can.
will they put them, in their bags?
Backpack.
I anything, zip them up and, or don't bring them.
They almost always have them on their body, in their pocket. They find spaces somewhere to store it. Sometimes it's in their backpack, but typically they have it on them.
Oh, okay.
But I
The older
think,
kids.
I think the other piece, you know, instead of trying, so let's talk about real world for a second. Okay? I think this is a great four-step policy. I think it's great to say no cell phones, okay? The reality is, kids are going to bring cell phones. I think the best thing that can happen is to meet with staff and have all the staff be, consistent. And if all the staff are consistent and support each other and support the administration and the administration supports the staff, then I think you're gonna have less issues
Oh, sure.
with,
I agree.
with the kids.
Yeah.
And I think that would be my true takeaway from this. Instead of trying to say to Lauren, I see you have your cell phone. Yes, well, but if it's just in her pocket and she's not using it,
Oh, I think it can be
Yep.
in her pocket.
you
yeah.
know what I mean?
agree
That's,
with that.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
you know what I mean?
Totally.
It's a
I don't
totally
think
different
we need to
situation.
have
So
a
again,
law
it's
like they
that,
talked about.
you know, there's a difference between it being in Lauren's pocket and Christy over there on her phone. That's a different situation. So I think that
And
if,
they're gonna test it.
of course they
Okay,
are,
so-
but that's where I think if people are consistent, that the message will be sent and it will be an easier adjustment for everyone.
The most important part of this is removing the line from the handbook that gives teachers discretion or other people
Yeah,
in the,
they don't
in the
need
building
to.
discretion to say, oh, when you're with me, you can use your phone. Once one educator does that, every other educator pays a price.
Right.
Because the kids know, I was just here and it was okay, and now I'm here and it's not, and now it becomes pitting teachers against each other, and nobody's having any fun with that.
Well, and kids in sports need their phones.
Yep.
You know, after school, if they have to call their
Mhm.
parent to come get them, you know, or if they're on the bus and it's gonna be late, I know for sure the sports kids need their cell phones. So putting it in their pocket's fine with me, I have no problems with that.
I will say that it is rare for one of them not to comply. If you see them with it out and you just say, put it away, they put it away.
Oh, good.
It's very rare for them to become, defiant and keep, using it. They will typically put it away.
Oh, good. That's good to hear.
Are you gonna update any language to include watches? Cause there's texting that's, and phone calls on watches too that happen.
Oh, yeah, those are.
Yeah, so actually, the existing handbook policy is and electronic devices, and it would have to cover them.
Cause you'll see that out, that will be obviously worn externally out.
Okay,
Right.
moving on.
Got that?
Moving on to, action items, we need to reaffirm, we took some,
We took those on field
board
trips.
members, we took some votes by email, excuse me.
Right.
So we have Hadlock Field, grade 6, York's Wild Kingdom, grade 3, Auschwitz, not long ago, grade 7, Great East Festival, grade 6 through 8, and we already did general assurances. So if I could have a motion to formally approve those field trips? Go ahead.
I make a motion to reaffirm the email votes regarding the out-of-state field trips
I'll second.
listed.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Hope everybody enjoyed. So now we are at fiscal year 23 audit.
What about the auto test?
We already did
that, right?
auto
Yeah,
test.
we already did
Yep.
it. Sorry.
Nope, that's okay. You can check me anytime, Carol. So we have the audit here. I did read through. There were some,
Yeah, we're working on them.
yep,
We've put some processes in place for the journal entries being approved appropriately, and, the budget adjustments, there were, I think, I'm not sure which ones those were. And the student activities, we are still working on getting that situated. Other than that,
yeah, it
it
seemed
went
to me like
well.
more like clerical things, like little tiny things that they probably wanted it done one way before, and now they want it done another way, or something like.
Oh, really? What a shock
I
that would
know,
be, huh?
right? Sounds like special
Okay,
Yeah.
so we don't need to
Just
accept
have to
this, or?
accept the audit.
Oh, we do. We need a motion on that.
I make a motion, we accept the 23 audit as presented.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, let's talk about lunch price increases, everybody's favorite topic.
So each year, I have to complete a USDA Food and Nutrition Paid Lunch Equity Tool, it's called. And this kind of dictates what the prices should be. They want, this year, their price was going to like $3.85, which is an adjustment. What they do is they add 2% rate increase from last year's price, and then the most recent consumer price index of 8.27%. So I fill out this big spreadsheet, and ours came in to increase at least to $3, and that's the minimum.
It sounds like the minimum is
To be,
very, very,
to be in
a little
compliant.
conservative and stringent. It
And that is why
sounds
it's 'cause
like,
it's been-
unfortunately, we need to look at a little bit more than the minimum, is that what I'm?
I think so.
Yeah,
So
right.
there were 3 years that we stayed steady at one price, and normally you increase it at least 10 cents every year. That's what they want you to at least raise it. They suggest obviously up to $3.85. That's a little high. To ask.
It is really, it's so
I
disappointing.
mean, we only lost $100,000 last
Right,
year.
it is so disappointing. I mean, if there was, one thing, I would love for lunch to be free for every single student. That
was
is
great.
sad. However,
Now, they're saying, increase to at least $3. I know Barnstead, they will have to at least raise it to $3.20. I'm almost wondering if we can,
could we just go $3.25? Would that be a magic number that so it would be up by 50 cents? Would that?
What is Barnstead's current price?
It's right there.
$2.80.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There it is.
And they're gonna
Okay.
go
That's
up
a
to
big jump for
3.20,
them.
so 3.25
Ours is
would be in
275.
line with
Yeah.
Farmington and Pittsfield.
And some of these schools, these are this year's rates, so they're gonna definitely they're gonna increase.
Will still be low.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't like it, but
Yeah,
I need a motion.
so we're talking
Unless somebody's going to
325
donate
instead of 3.
$100,000
Yeah,
to our lunch
sure.
fund, which if there are any donors out there, we will gladly accept that. But
Sure. All right, reluctantly, I make a motion to raise our price to $3.25. Anyone second?
I mean, I second reluctantly.
I
It's
mean,
a sad
is
situation
this gonna
that
create
we're
a
in.
hardship for a lot of people? I mean, there are free and reduced lunch paperwork that a lot of people don't like to fill out.
Will that change the criteria for that at all, for,
free
No,
and
the
reduced.
criteria for free
Yes.
and reduced lunch is set by the federal government, by the
Yeah, they
USDA.
just-
as long
That'll
as
stay
we
the
keep
same.
throwing away food every time we,
That's so frustrating, isn't it?
yeah.
So if you've never been in the lunchroom, what Mrs. Ferruggio is referring to is in order to create a reimbursable lunch as defined by the USDA, we have to place 5 components on the tray. And
Yep.
it is the case sometimes that a student doesn't want to eat all 5 things, but we still have to give all 5 things to the
Yep.
student in order for the meal to meet the USDA criteria. And yes, that means some things end up in the trash.
They throw away good apples and oranges.
Yep.
Well, there you go. I think there's a discussion to be had here.
No, sorry. I'm very, very reluctant about it, but
Me too,
it's
I-
what we need to do then.
I mean, it's
what we need to
something
do.
that at some point, if we could look at different ways or something creative, I would be, if at budget time, if we
See,
could look at
Janice
that.
would like to say something.
Oh,
If you don't
yes,
mind.
Janice?
I've worked in a district where if a student didn't want their banana or their apple or their orange, they could put it on a tray from somebody that was working in the cafeteria for lunch duty. All they did was place it on it, and then take that item of fruit and eat it. I don't know if that's an option, I mean, we're post-COVID, I
That's,
don't
we
know,
do that at our school.
but we don't do that here, and I think.
That should be done.
Yeah,
Should
if
be
it's whole
done.
food, not,
Some-
I mean,
Some schools compost. I don't even know if we have a composting program here, but some schools just compost because it is often the fruit that ends up in these
and
places.
some people give it to the local farmers for their animals.
That's what we did in previous
goats,
district.
Pigs, whatever, I don't do any of
So-
that, but.
Doesn't keep our costs
So
down.
we could talk about,
No,
we could
but-
talk about some ways to not be wasteful, but maybe at the next budget in October that we could discuss or brainstorm some ideas, because I think everyone is really reluctant. And if there are any,
We sell
Options.
breakfast, is that a price increase too? Do we have any
I
prices?
didn't, yeah, I didn't, offer the price increase, it'll stay the same,
Okay.
yeah, unless you guys wanna raise that as well.
Well, I feel like more kids buy lunch than they buy breakfast. But I think if we raise breakfast as well, then, I mean, if we're looking to also offset the cost of what we just spent, right? We just spent $100,000. Then I think then maybe we could do $325 and also increase breakfast. I know that's not the same, but maybe,
how much does breakfast cost?
It's for Alton.
Yeah, yeah. I don't have kids
I
in
should know,
school.
'cause my child buys every day after I cook for him.
Oh, yeah.
Should have it.
I'm just thinking like different ideas so we don't jump so fast, but I mean, obviously everybody is
$1.60.
the same.
$3.25.
What is it?
It's a
It's
$1.60.
yeah.
And that includes what? What does the breakfast include?
I
It's
don't
not as
know.
regulated, is it?
Yeah.
It's kind of a big
No,
hit
it's
for a kid that's gotta
reimbursable,
buy
so.
It is
breakfast and
reimbursable.
lunch, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, see if you're gonna do both.
I mean, you're increasing 50 cents here. and
No,
then-
I'm saying not increase it 50 cents, only increase it $3.25.
That's
Just so
what
that
we,
it's
that's what we
50 cents.
proposed.
That would be,
That's
50.
50 cents.
You mean reduce, or
I mean,
make
25.
lunch $3 instead
Yes,
of
sorry,
$3.25?
yes, sorry, I was,
Okay.
yes. Only increase it to $3 and increase breakfast a little bit more because then maybe,
but are you
I
gonna
don't
make up
know.
the money that you need?
probably
That's my
won't, but-
concern.
no, I don't think we're gonna make it up.
We'll never make it up. We'll
No.
never make up the money. This
But then
never
maybe
happens.
next year we could increase lunch a little bit more than, I don't know, just coming up with different.
It's a big jump.
And there are some, you know, at budget season, like you said, you could budget to have money set aside so that it's transferred into the food service.
I personally think that is
I think we
the
should.
That's an
answer.
option.
I think that it is really important at budget time that we do something to counterbalance this.
I agree.
You know, I don't love $3.25, but I also 50 cents a day. I mean, it's $100,000. It's also, food is expensive. If anybody has gone to Hannaford lately,
Yeah, the price of food
I
is
think
gone
I know,
everyone
it
knows
is.
that it
I
is
know.
not inexpensive. So, I don't know if you wanna touch breakfast or leave it alone.
If we're gonna do $3.25, I'd leave breakfast alone. That's how I
Yeah.
feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay,
maybe
so there was a
chase-
motion on the floor
increase
to
breakfast next.
increase breakfast from $2.75,
Lunch.
lunch, sorry, yep. There was a motion on the floor to increase lunch
The
from
$3.25.
$2.75 to $3.25, which is an increase of 50 cents
Per day.
per day. It is reluctantly, but all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So
They'll
we
all kill
will
us
raise the
tomorrow.
lunch price, but we will talk about,
We'll hear about this on social media tomorrow.
well, I hope that we hear about it in the form of people offering creative solutions, Carol.
Yeah, I agree.
Our job is not easy, and we are trying to keep in mind the taxpayers in this town who don't have children and
Right.
the taxpayers who do have children.
And there are
So if there are
lunches you can
creative
make.
solutions out there, I welcome them on Facebook,
I agree.
as opposed to
I'm hoping it's
complaints
creative and
and.
plus. Yes, positive.
Right,
Let's go for
let's
positive.
look for some positive feedback.
We will take
We would
suggestions.
look for a donor of
We would
$100,000.
love to have a donor.
We'll look for a donor.
All right, moving on. We
All
did
right.
encumbrances, yes?
You did.
Yeah,
We already did.
so personnel report.
First now, we have 4 professional staff nominations. They include a middle school social studies teacher, a 4th grade teacher, a special ed case manager, and the appointment of an assistant principal to join Mrs. Christian, our new principal, and that is Jacqueline Rohr, who some of you may know.
Okay, so do I have a nomination?
I make a motion that we accept all of the renewals and new employees as stated. That makes, okay?
Yep. I think so.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, it's not easy to find staff, so.
Are we gonna have a girls soccer coach on this? I know we had one on there last year.
We plan to have girls soccer.
Oh, okay,
yes.
I just checking.
Yep.
Okay, I think we are we at second public input?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, second public input.
Lots of
Thank you,
people
Mrs.
clamoring
Christian,
to speak.
for attending.
Yep.
Okay, so seeing no public input, we will close that. Future agenda items.
I don't have anything I can think of right now.
Taking a couple of notes.
Okay, I think we have some things in August to talk about with the handbook, right?
Yeah, the
Cell
handbook will be
phones,
there.
and we'll continue to talk about testing.
Yeah, you'll see the handbook and the emergency operations manual. Those are routine August things that there are probably a couple of other things that you just approve every year.
Yeah, I mean, tackling the test scores is gonna be a biggie.
Huge. So we need a non-public?
Yes, please.
Okay, so before we go into non-public, I do just wanna say the next meeting dates, there's no meeting in July, and our meeting is August 19th. So, excuse me while I use my phone to check my calendar
Oh, no.
and make sure it's in there.
Keep that in your pocket, young lady.
Yes, and
Look at all
say
of you
it's
with your
not.
I gotta put it in or else it's not gonna happen.
That's right.
That's what happened to me with my hair appointment. I didn't put it in the calendar and it didn't happen.
Okay, so, make a motion to go,
Yeah, let's see, what do we have to do? I make a motion that we go into non-public session under RSA 91-A:32, parentheses A and C, personnel and student matters.
okay, roll call.
Yes.
Yes.
Christy Wood. Yes.
Christie seconded.
Carol Locke, yes.
We
No, we might as well say our
Yes.
names.
That's right.
Lauren refuses to do this.